We're here.
What's up?
I'm so glad to be here with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm really excited. I am, we are live tonight on my LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and your LinkedIn and Facebook, which is awesome. And I'm just keeping an eye on another screen to make sure that we are actually live, because, you know, sometimes things get a little messy. And it does not appear that we're live on LinkedIn yet. So if you are on LinkedIn and you are seeing us, let me know. Come say hi in the comments. And if you're live with us anywhere, we'd love comments. I love comments. We love to have this be like a conversation. And so let us know you're here. Let us know what you want to know about turning points. It looks like we are live on LinkedIn and my device is just a little wonky. But say hi to us in the comments. Yay! Yes, you are. Thank you, David. Thanks for the confirmation. So glad to be here with you, Kat. And so for everyone who's joining us, we are new friends, Kat and I. And you know, sometimes you just meet somebody and in 5 seconds, it feels like you've been friends for quite a while. And that's how it felt when Kat and I met each other. And well, it did for me. I hope it felt like that for you.
Yes. Conversation was just like blah.
Yeah. And so, 2 weeks later, I was on Kat's podcast, and the episode hasn't been out yet, but it will be coming. And we were just talking about our past and our history and how much we had in common in such different ways of having turning points in our lives where, we had wake-up calls and we had moments where things just had to change and had to be better. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. So if you have questions as we're going along, come into the comments. We'll bring comments up on the screen, just like right here with David telling us, yes, we are on LinkedIn at least. And let's get the conversation started. So Kat, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve? What you got?
All the things. Okay, well, first off, if you guys see me picking at my ears, I promise I'm not a weirdo. I have headphones in, but apparently smiling today. They don't want to say it. So, as you get to know me, apparently very candid and blunt. So my name is Kat or Katherine. Kat's just 10 times shorter, a lot easier to put stuff together. I am a mom of 2 boys, 18 and 15. So please pray for me. As we're in the teenage years, I am a podcaster. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm actually in real estate as well. Goodness, I serve everyone. I serve mainly in my business. I would have to say that it would be people in the entrepreneurial world, especially sales-based, that are looking to get unstuck in their business, especially if you're that person that has, done some things and are looking to kind of take it to the next level, but feel like you're going in a circle, right? Or you've watched all of the videos and bought all the programs, so you're in this fantastic analysis paralysis, as I like to call it, and you're just kind of stuck in making that move. I really enjoy actually helping people get out of that box and take your thoughts and your personalities and kind of build you up to push your business forward. So my background's in medical administration. I actually worked on building a couple of small practices, and yeah, I'm the weirdo that loves administration and systems and all the things that most people hate. So
love that. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach. My my deep core belief is that fine is a trap, and fine is the thing that we settle for because we think it's all we can get. And so we, self-soothe and say, it's fine that I'm so busy. They pay me a lot of money. It's fine that my manager is toxic. I'm going to be promoted soon. And we justify why our lives can only be fine. And I think our lives can be amazing. And that's what I help my clients with. We got a couple of people who have joined us. Ashwin, so great to see you back on LinkedIn. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for coming. And Kimberly, nice to see you too. Hello, ladies. Thought I'd pop in and see what's going on here.
Hello.
It's fine. Everything's fine. Yes, exactly. With the dog on fire behind. And like Kat, I am also a podcaster. And I have a podcast partner, John, and we talk about leadership in real, raw, vulnerable kinds of ways, not the philosophy behind or the theory of or the statistics about, but actually like what it is like to be human and also be a leader. So Kat, one of our first conversations, this is our third conversation. It's not like we've been friends for a million years, but we immediately. But in our first conversation, we were kind of talking about how we both ended up, and I don't like to use ended up because it feels like settled for, but like we both challenged ourselves to take ourselves to new levels, to start our own businesses, to get out of this rat race of the corporate business world. And we both kind of had the experience of being the catch-all for stuff, right? I sort of coined myself as the vice president of whatever you need, and worked all the time. And you did a lot of that too. And so tell me like how you got to that point where you went from like, I work and I raise a family, and to like, I will do whatever is needed and more, and I'll be looking out for more and more stuff.
Oh goodness. Yeah, I just wish that I would have pronounced myself as the vice president of What Do You Need? So like I would have had a cool title instead of just people pleasing. So it would have sounded so much better. Oh gosh, I think that I've always enjoyed being challenged, and I think that's a thing that I see across the board with a lot of people is we get bored, and so when we get bored, we're like, oh, we can take on more. So I always found myself kind of doing that just for the simple fact that I enjoy learning, and for me, it's always been, you learn it, you create a habit, so therefore the mind can kind of do it by itself, and you can kind of keep, doing whatever else, right? If anybody is in here has ever watched, if you've ever been like really tired of like driving down the road and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm home, you're like, how the hell did that happen? It's because it's such a habit that the subconscious, right, it just takes over. So that was kind of like something I discovered with myself. So I enjoyed learning more. I think where it got to the point of being like extremely debilitating and just like constantly overwhelming and people pleasing, and I can do everything and not know how to say no. I think a lot of that actually came from getting out of an abusive relationship. I did it some while I was in that relationship because my job was like my safe space. It was my place to get away. It was my place to like be someone completely different and not be stuck in all of the crap that I was dealing with at home. So I found myself doing things like that just to kind of keep myself busy. But when I got out of the relationship, instead of being able to be alone with my own thoughts and work on that piece of me and healing and all the stuff, it was easier for me to just keep myself slammed to the point of exhaustion because I felt like I was doing stuff, but I realize now that it's really just because I didn't want to sit alone. I didn't want to sit and cry for endless hours and be pissed at myself for crying, because of a situation that I wasn't in anymore and things like that. So I filled my days with anything and everything that kept me busy, to the point to where when I came home and my kids finally went to bed and I was done with my college courses at night, I just passed out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I had a different life. And it's so interesting to me how we parallel in the doing when the being part of how our lives are can be so different. And yet so many of us still end up in this pattern of like doing more and more and picking up more and more to avoid something. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was dealing with chronic illness and I didn't want anybody to know I was sick. So I worked harder than anybody else. So nobody would say like, oh, don't give Lauren extra work. She's fragile, poor thing. And so I worked extra hard. And all I really could do was work and sleep. So by the time I was done with work, working, 12-hour, 15-hour days, like I didn't have energy for anything else because I was sick. So I
Yeah.
didn't have time to think about like what I actually wanted, how I actually wanted things to be. And Kimberly says that's so common, using work as your safe space. It's like so easy to throw ourselves all the way in to busyness so that we don't have to actually think about what we want our lives to be, what they have been, whatever traumas we've gone through. And me, I was always a people pleaser. And so from like young, I was always, if somebody needed help with something, I'll do it. I was there. I'll be your helper. I still do it. I actually like warn people when I start working with them that if I do this, that it's like my survival mechanism instinct to be helpful, and that they have the right to say like, we're not asking you to help. You're okay. You go sit down.
I love that though.
Yeah. So and then like, you hit a wall, right? Like at some point you've been so busy and you recognize that it's not going to work forever. So and that's really like the crux of what we're talking about right now. What was your turning point, or what were your turning points where you were like, it cannot be like this anymore?
Oh gosh, I had several turning points. So I mean, we can go all the way back to when I was a teenager. I think that a couple of my turning points were kind of in the way of being defiant, right? To like prove everybody that I knew what the hell I was doing, right? Or that I could do it. I got pregnant at 16. And there were funny enough, apparently there was a baby boom in my school. So there was a bunch of people pregnant. And what I realized was everyone around me, they were all doing the same thing, which was mom and dad were raising their kid and they got to continue being a teenager. And being raised Catholic and Italian, and that was not something in our household, but we were brought up to take care of our responsibilities. So that was kind of the first turning point for me, was when that happened. It was like, okay, so either I can continue being a teenager or I can switch into mom mode and get my crap together because I made this decision, this is what happened, and this is how I'm going to fix it, right? Quote unquote. And so that's what I did, right? And so I was like extremely determined to just make that my priority, right? And I did. I did that for a while. I graduated a year early. I graduated second in class. I was president of student council. I still managed to breastfeed my child for a full year at the age of 16 while I was going to school. And I worked babysitting at night so that I could make money, so that my parents didn't have to pay for things and all the good stuff. And then I think at that point, I kind of hit that like 18-year-old wall where it was like, I can do anything kind of thing. And my parents and I didn't see eye to eye, which is when I made the turning point to move out with my then boyfriend, which ended up leading into that 8 years. And at that point in time, after being completely isolated, being taken away from everybody, and to the point to where even though I was the one that was working, I didn't want anybody to know what's going on, right? I was really big on like keeping everything to myself. I developed this mechanism that a lot of people I've seen in this traumatic area will, where you fight for yourself for so long and disagree with the person to the point to where you can't even trust your thoughts, and you're like, wait a minute, so did that, but, and so you eventually just give in. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people stay in those situations. For me, the turning point in that one was I had two young boys at the time. They were 8 and 6 at the time. Always around when there was the yelling and the arguing and the throwing of things or whatever was going on. I always tried to kind of separate them. But he was really great at trying to like involve them, right? The turning point in that actually was when we were having an argument. My kids got involved in it, and my youngest one said, yeah, mom, why do you keep doing that? And it was like something just snapped, and I was like, oh my God, I can handle him doing this to me, I can't handle my kids speaking that way. And then it's really weird, but that was kind of like the turning point, like the smack in the face that I needed, that I realized, oh my God, I don't want my kids to grow up being like this. I don't want them to treat other people like this. Now, how do I get out of the situation? And that took 2 years to kind of figure that out and formulate a plan and really like go back to, okay, wait a minute. Did what he say actually, is that actually true? Right? Or is that just him? And so I started analyzing things. That was a huge turning point for me and a big start over. And then the third turning point was after I got out of the relationship. I did the people pleasing. I did the stay busy as much as you can thing. And I was making up for anything and everything my kids and I never got to do, right? We weren't allowed to really go anywhere or do a lot of things. So I was always gone with them, like every weekend, as much as I possibly could, whatever I could do. And a year after I got out of the situation, I started having, at that point in time, what I thought were heart issues. I would be in the middle of work and all of a sudden lose my breath and couldn't breathe. And I felt like someone was sitting on my chest, did not know that I was having panic attacks. I went to a heart doctor. I had to wear a monitor for 24 hours. I had 1,000 extra heartbeats in a 24-hour period, but they did an EKG and a scan and everything. And they're like, your heart is healthy. We can't figure out what's wrong. So the only thing that we can say is that maybe you just have a lot of stress. And I was like, I'm not stressed. I'm not stressed at all. I'm out of my situation. And then it kind of like hit me that the date that I got the results back for my heart test, and I realized when he said stress, I'm like, there's no way it's stress. It was 2 days after the 1-year anniversary that I had gotten out of the situation that I was starting to have those issues. And so I realized, holy crap, I haven't been dealing with stuff. Like I've been shoving it down so deep because I thought that box would like disappear. I was really hoping. It did not. But that was a huge turning point. I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like, I don't want to have this. These suck. And at the time, I was like, okay, well, I put my kids in therapy when I got out of the situation, but I wasn't ready to have that conversation. I was like, I think I need to. So I put myself in therapy. I was diagnosed with PTSD, panic attacks, anxiety. And so I had to start working through those things, which eventually 4 years later led into personal development and working on limiting beliefs and realizing that I did want more and things needed to change with the way I was handling my kids because I was parenting my children from an unhealed space, which was causing them to have unhealed issues as well. So I guess you could say that was another turning point for me, was when my kids really got too close to being teenagers. And I was like, oh God, like I'm yelling all the time. I'm doing, things that are from my relationship. My kids are triggering things that shouldn't be. And then that's when I kind of put 2 and 2 together, that it wasn't their fault. It was because of all the things that I hadn't dealt with. So I know that was a really long answer, but to break down, and really explain to you guys the different turning points that I've had and continue to go through in my life, those are probably the biggest milestones.
Yeah, those are big milestones. And it's like, sometimes we have to be hit so hard with the things that are damaging us before we recognize that something has to change, right? Like it's so easy to look at other people's lives and be like, what are you doing in your situation? Lauren, you're sick. Why don't you just like take care of yourself and work 40 hours a week? And I was like, I can't. Like, I got to be the hero, And we've got a comment from Ashwin that, it seems like he's coming to his turning point now. 18 years of 4 16-hour days, inconsistent income, micromanaging clients who want the moon too soon for the pennies they pay. Your turning point is 20 years late and you're still waiting for the smack on your face. You will survive. Of course you will survive. So, that comment, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because there are people who are watching this or who will watch this later who are feeling this way and aren't ready to say that out loud yet. So like, I didn't say it out loud until I said it in passing. I was talking to the person who became my first coach, and I'd been coaching for 15 years. And I was like, I don't need a coach. I'm a high achiever. I can take care of everything myself. I'm completely healthy working 15, 16-hour days and only working and sleeping. I'm fine. And that's where fine as a trap was born from. But like there's not a point where you're like, gosh, these 14 to 16-hour days seem long. You have to be like smacked with something, which is frustrating and unfortunate, right? But like I was talking to this woman who I ended up hiring as my coach, and was talking to her with a checklist of things, right? I wanted to finally go and get my coaching certification. I'd never done it. I'd always been coaching informally. And she had gotten certified. And so I was asking, how much did it cost? And how many hours was it? And how did it work? And what did you know? And then she said, great, we've got the logistics out of the way. Like, what else do you want to know about this? And I said, well, you're telling me all of this stuff and how much work it is. And gosh, I'm just trying to figure out how to fit it in because I already work at least 80 hours a week. And like, that's not going to change. And she said, if you say so. And all sides boiled. And I was like, my brain was like, you don't understand. You don't have the life I have, and now I look back at it and I roll my eyes at myself because I had this like feeling that the whole world would shut down around me. And if I wasn't handling all of the things I was already handling and also always adding to it and like reproving my worth for no more money, by the way. Like they were paying me a good salary to be the vice president of HR, but I was like also the vice president of finance and operations. And sometimes I took over marketing. And once I took over program management and once I took over fundraising and, who knows what's going to come up. I'll be there. And then she sat in silence after she said that. And I recognized in that moment that like, as a high achieving person who was the person who solved everybody else's stuff, I had absolutely no idea how to manage myself. Yeah. And for the next couple of years, like as I developed my goal to go out on my own and to have a full-time coaching business instead of squeezing it in on the side during time that I didn't really have, I did a lot of work with that coach, with a business coach, with a therapist. And for me, it was so like interesting to see that I had been to therapy in my 30s when I was dealing with a chronic illness, and it was super helpful then. But then going into coaching and seeing sort of that forward motion of how I could develop and, start from a baseline and go forward moved me in all kinds of new ways, and also uncovered that I needed therapy for other things. So back to therapy I went. But I think so many of us are so independent, right? Like I graduated from college and I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm not coming home. I'm living here in Maryland. I'm staying where I am. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. I packed like trash bags full of my college stuff because who had suitcases or like formal boxes? I wasn't that grown up. And I just like on friends' couches till I figured out what I was doing. And then I was like, now I'm independent. I do everything on my own. And it's really, I think, hard for people like you and me to recognize that we need that outside help. So I give you a lot of credit for recognizing what was right in front of you, that it wasn't a healthy place for you, and that going to therapy and then discovering what even limiting beliefs are, right? Which not a lot of people even really talk about. And then really doing that work to decide like, this isn't for me. This isn't the rest of my life. I'm not going to just wait until like I finally retire or collapse one day and can't do it anymore. Like I want to actually live a life that I enjoy. So when you decided to leave your company life, right, and start working for yourself and start building that, how did you do it? How did you like get yourself out there and learn to run a business?
Oh gosh. So funny enough, I had decided when I was in the medical field that real estate was a direction that I wanted to go because I could make a lot of money and I could also be a single mom to my kids. I could show up to their games and do all that stuff. By the way, it's not how that works. Anybody that wants to get in real estate, but it's not how that works. But So I had this plan. I was like, cool, I'll work in medical, I'll learn my real estate, and I'll kind of, move into it. That was the thought process. Funny enough, what ended up happening was in that time I had already had the heart problems and stuff like that, and I was working through that. And so I was learning to start putting small boundaries out there. So not big ones, but just, teeny tiny little things where I would like make a comment or be like, I can't do that, right? Or I don't have, the time for that, or something like that. What that kind of actually turned into was me feeling a little bit more confident, right, in myself. And then it got a little bit easier to kind of like speak up a little bit more. And so my doctor and I actually ended up having a moral issue where he was changing some prices and stuff at the point in time, different from what we had previously agreed on. And I was his office manager, and I was like, that's not what we discussed, blah, 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 right? And so I took it upon myself to make the correct decision and not my own business, in his business. So I went ahead with what we had originally talked about. My understanding is, and I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing that he found out is what kind of happened. And so I went from having a full-time job. I had moved back in with my parents, living in one room with my two children, and trying to get my life together. Had just bought my first car. I was actually in the process of moving out of my parents' house, and had just bought my first house. And my doctor walks in and goes, today's your last day, out of the blue, after I spent 2.5 years rebuilding a lot of things within his practice. And I was so mad. But that was kind of like, that was that determination smack in the face of like, you know what? I have been doing what everybody else wants me to do and doing it their way for so long. Why can't I work with who I want to, the way I want to, and people respect me for what I do? And so that's when I took the leap into real estate. I thought about getting a part-time job and going back into it. And I was like, you know what? Nah, I'll scare myself to all living hell, because it's a push, right? It's a push, it's a drive behind you to make crap happen. And so I used
Mhm.
that as like, okay, you know what? Screw it. If no one else can help me build, and I bust my butt, and at the time I was still doing 10 hours a day, working through lunch, not getting paid overtime or anything like that. I was like, I can do it. I'll do my own thing, right? And then I can be mad at myself for what happens, but I don't have to argue with someone else and I build their business up just for them to squish me and be like, no, I'm done with you, right?
Right.
And so I took the leap, scared the living crap out of me, but I was again so like determined. Um, and so I really dove into it wholeheartedly when I got into the business. And instead of doing what I feel like a lot of people do, where either they sit on one end of the fence where they do nothing but learn,
Mhm.
or they jump in so chaotically that they have a really hard time puzzle piecing things together. I actually took some time to step back, and I was like, okay, what am I going into? Sales. What am I going to be doing? Running my own business. What have I learned in the past that can help me? So I'd actually done sales before. I worked for a tech company. I sold tax software to tax professionals. And so I did the sales side, I did their tech side and things like that. So I used that as a piece to walk with me into
Mhm.
this completely unknown of being a business owner. And then I really worked on getting around the right people. So when I was at the brokerage, or when I found people on YouTube that I was like, man, I really like what they're doing, I took the deep breath and I reached out to see who would answer me. And then
Mm.
I got comfortable with asking a crap ton of questions, which is one of the hardest things for people that are very determined, right? But what I realized was, is in order to do it correctly, and in order to actually make my business be something, and in order to not fail miserably and go back into corporate where I work and build somebody else's business, I was gonna have to take that leap that people would be okay with teaching me. And if I couldn't figure out someone to teach me, where could I go to learn it so that I could move forward?
Yeah. Amazing. It's so exciting that, like, I know it's really scary, right? Like, I'm kind of scared all the time in my entrepreneurial life. And some days I wake up
Yes.
and I'm like, I'm gonna have the best day. I have clients all day. It's so cool. What a great life. And some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm gonna run out of money. I'm gonna have to live in my car if I can even keep my car. And in the end, it all works out, and it's a better life than I than I had before.
Yes.
But like, I give you so much credit for just like all along the way at all of the turning points, like just taking control and making decisions. And I think so often we get stuck in pushing the same rock up the same hill forever, right? And we get in this pattern of like, I'm going to do all this stuff so that I can make enough money so that like later on I can enjoy my life. And what I see in you and in me is that we took these turning points for ourselves and we recognized where we could get support, where we could learn, how we could take control. And we're both like finding our joy. And it's, you know, it's an up and down path, I think. But there's a comment in the comments from Dale. And he says, persistence and independence carry us a long way until they don't. Nothing like hitting a wall to get your attention. And I think that's such a beautiful point, that like one of my fears in asking for help, in going back to therapy, in hiring my own coach, was that like it would make me look less capable and less independent and like a high achiever. And the truth is, like, it's the total opposite. Like, by handing over my control, not even to another person, but just like to not myself, to not like put it all on myself to solve my own problems and try to look at myself objectively, which is sort of impossible because our limiting beliefs are way louder than like our highest self and our essence and our, you know, the amazing things. So we need other people around us and communities around us. And the community that you and I met in is her mastermind, which is part of Her Nation, which is run by Sabrina Victoria. So if you're looking for a group of like freaking incredible women, join Her Nation and get to know Sabrina, and see if, you know, one of her groups are right for you. But I love that group in particular because it's like strong, independent women who are like, how can I help you? And how can you help me? And how do we level ourselves up and stop limiting ourselves? And I especially love when we talk about sales. I hate it when we talk about sales, because the sales aspect of my career and of my job is the hardest for me. I had a very short sales career at the beginning of my career, and then I was tapped on the shoulder to move out of that department to try. Why don't you try something else, Lauren? My clients were super happy with me because I wasn't pushing anything on them, but we weren't making any money from clients. And so they were like, maybe you try something different. But, you know, I've learned how to talk about myself and what I do and what my clients can get from working with me. But that's the scary part for me. And so I love in our group that we talk about it, because it gets me out of my comfort zone. Like, if you want to make your life better, if you want to recognize a turning point and recognize that your life doesn't go the same way forever and ever and ever, that isn't making you happy, that isn't making you money, that isn't giving you time to rest or be with your family or like have hobbies or whatever it is that you want to do that's outside of your work time or inside of a career that makes you like really thrive and really happy, you got to surround yourself with people who are also going through that for themselves. And that's something that I really learned, because when I first started talking about going out on my own, when I wasn't sure about it, I was talking about it and people were like, well, what if you get sick? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Well, what if you don't have enough clients? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Right. And then I started surrounding myself with people who were building their own businesses. And they were like, and what if you succeed? What if you have more clients than you can handle? And what if you're so happy? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. So
it's interesting how we take everybody's beliefs or opinions and we immediately find a connection and we're like, oh, that is truth.
right.
Like it's
Yes.
such a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you advise people as we're like sort of getting ready to wrap this up? If people are sitting and watching this and they're like, oh my gosh, I am former Kat, I am former Lauren. How do I get myself out of this hole of doing all the work and doing all the things for other people, or being in a relationship that's not healthy for me, or being in a life situation that's not healthy for me? What would you tell people to do to like get started? What is like a first set of steps?
I would say make a list of pros and cons.
Mm.
So take everything in your life that you're not sure about, or you feel like you're going in circles, whether it's a relationship, whether it's personal, whether it's your business, whether it's your job, whatever the case may be, and categorize those things, right? And then really write down, and you have to take a second because you'll have the first things that fly up, and then you're going to have the afterthoughts that are like, well, what if that's not right? We're not talking about that. We're just writing down what makes me happy, what are my pros, what are the things that I don't like. What's interesting is when you do that, especially if you look at that across your life, is you will notice there are certain cons across your life that you are doing that you don't like in many
Mm-hmm.
different areas. And there are certain pros that you do like in one that you're like, man, I wish that was here and here. That's where you can start, in my opinion, to really figure out what is genuinely going to make you happy. And I know that for me, that was really hard in the beginning as well, to be like, when people are like, oh, what makes you happy? I'm like, oh, spending time with my kids, being a mom. Yes, but that's it's kind of a temporary, right? Like it's at the forefront when your kids are younger and it kind of falls to the backside when they get older because you still have to put yourself first. So when you're looking at those pros, read through them. And I don't mean in your head, I mean like literally out loud. Because what's interesting is when you read certain things or when you say certain things, it elicits a response within the body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you'll notice like, oh my God, I love hiking. I love being out in the woods. Okay. But when I say that, it's not just a like, I love to hike. I feel myself get energized. I can feel myself going out there to do something, right? That's the difference between something that makes you happy and something that is just a pro, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
really have to look at those words or look at those phrases and say them out loud to see how it makes you feel. And if it doesn't light you up and it doesn't make you just feel like, yes, yes, I want more of that, it's probably just something that you're using to cover up the other crap that you just don't enjoy doing, but it's like an okay thing. Um, and that's where you need to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then from there you can look at, okay, where where can I set boundaries to get out of those cons, right? And when I say that, I mean like start like super simple. Like if telling somebody no, I can't do that doesn't work for you, make up an excuse. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm actually busy, so I'm not going to be able to. Because it still builds up a resilience. And then eventually it's really easy to be like, yeah, you know what? I just don't have time for that. I apologize. It's not my thing. Right. Or it's
Mm-hmm.
not in my wheelhouse or it doesn't align with me. It gets easier, but you have to start with the small things. That's just like if you're thinking about getting into business or you're like, woe is me, my life sucks. When you find people online that you look at them, you're like, God, I wish I had some stuff like that, right? You catch yourself rolling your eyes. Do me a favor, send them a comment, send them a
Mm.
DM. I am so happy for you. Congratulations. I wish you the best. I did this and it was one of the weirdest things in the very beginning because I was one of those people that's like scrolled. I'm like, right? But I started leaving comments for random people. And I'm just be like, you know what? Congratulations. Like they've done something in their lives. They should be proud of themselves. I shouldn't be hating on them. But what happened was one, a lot of people like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And I got response. I was like, oh, I am a nice person. But but it became easier to congratulate other people. And then what I found was I can scroll through things and be like, you know what, freaking go you. That's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily what I want to do, but hell yeah, like I'm proud of you. So I make myself do that on a regular basis because it elevates how I feel and I stop hating people. It's a really easy way to get rid of the negative and bring the positive into your life. And it's interesting how, like, just small little things, find the small things that you can do to make those changes, to make those adjustments. And it does get easier and it does get easier. And then you build that confidence to where you can start being like, you know what? This is what I like doing and this sucks. So I'm going to wipe that out. I'm going to
Yeah.
delegate that to someone else, right? It becomes a lot easier and it strengthens your mind, how you deal with things, how you have a conversation with yourself. And it really can propel you forward, but it really does start with breaking down things in your life to see where you're at.
I love that. I, I, I have become known as a person who likes good news, which is like my favorite accidental thing. So I also am a person who like will go and comment on people's good news and just like, that's so great. And it has started happening, and especially in the last couple of years. It's always happened with my closer friends. But as I've developed friendships and relationships over LinkedIn and, you know, over virtual relationships, there are people in my life who will come to me and be like, I know you're a good news person, so here's some good news. Here's a good thing that happened to me. It's my favorite that people are willing to come to me and that they have good news and they're like, I want to tell Lauren. I love it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It's interesting how other people's goals and accomplishments can like make you feel so good when you really get into that place of being happy for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like watching a good movie.
Yeah. I love your pro-con list idea. And when you look at the cons, there's like, is your con a limiting belief? Is it like, I can't do it because, or is it, I don't want to do it and delegate it? Like when I was thinking about going into business for myself, my two stopping points were health insurance, right? Like I got to work for a company because I need health insurance. Which if you're not in the US, health insurance in the US is abysmal and super expensive and not good, even if you're with a company that's providing you with insurance. But my fear, because I have chronic illness, was like, I can't not have health insurance. And that was one fear. And the other fear was I can't do accounting. Like I've run a finance team, but the finance people knew how to do accounting. So I don't know how to do accounting. So when I decided to actually leave and go out on my own, the first person I hired was an accountant. I haven't hired anybody else. I've done like a little bit of like, oh, I needed some tech help. So I hired someone for like a one-time thing a couple of times to help me with that. But I was like, okay, I have to have enough money for an accountant if I'm going to go out on my own. And then with the benefits, the first time I talked to the woman who became my business coach, Katie McManus, if you're looking for a business coach, anyone, the first time that I talked to her, she was like, well, like, what does a catastrophic year look like if you've paid all of your premiums and you have to pay like your biggest out of pocket and it's like a terrible year? And of course, I'd already looked that up because I was like panic researching how to, you know, go into business for myself. And I said $18,000 if it's like the worst year. She was like, cool, decide what you want to make and add $18,000 to that. And I was like, oh.
I like that.
There goes that objection. And once you clear out those cons and you say to yourself like, okay, I don't have to do that, or okay, I can delegate that, or okay, I can figure out how to manage that, then they all move to the pro list. Pro, I can hire an accountant. I don't have to do my own accounting. Right? Like you can take that off your con list. You can take off all the I don't want to do's and figure out how to move yourself forward. And it's like for me, it's about like recognizing that it's going to be scary and wanting to do it anyway because you know the end result's going to be better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing with people too is delegation. Oh my gosh, delegation. And I think that comes in with that determination that I'm going to get it all done, or that I have to hold on to it because nobody else can do it like me kind of thing. And that is a big piece that gets so many people stuck. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm like, you know what? When I make enough money, I'm not cleaning my freaking house anymore. I'm hiring someone because I hate it. I love my house to be clean, but I hate having to take the time. I'm going to find somebody that can cook meals for me. Like, because I want to have hot meals when I have a long day, right? Like, it's interesting how you can reevaluate what is important in your life, and then those other things just become chores that you're like, I mean, I don't mind doing it, but if I could have the time to read more, learn more, hang out with my kids more, then it is all worth paying somebody else to do it. Because there are people in this world like me that love doing the weird things that nobody else loves doing, right? Like, there is someone out there that loves cleaning houses. Like, it makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
Hire someone like that because they enjoy doing that. Doesn't mean you have to. You know, I love doing admin stuff. I love building systems. I love help getting people organized. Most people in the business are like, I just want to talk to people, which is great. And I love that too. But I really thoroughly enjoy taking someone's business apart and being like, this is how you can structure it. Here we go. Right? Because I know it's going to take them to a different place. So let other people that have a strength in that area fill in where your weakness is, or where your I don't want to do it list is. It's not a bad thing. It's a way to get your time back.
Yep. And it's like iterative, right? Like, I didn't leave to go out on my own having the funds or the organization of, you know, how my business was going to look to hire someone to do my operations work. But in the next 6 months, I want to hire someone to help me with social media. So I'm working towards that financial goal so that I can put that money out. And then after I have more space that I'm not focusing on social media, and I have more social media going out on other platforms other than LinkedIn, well, then I can focus on, like, what do I want to do with my operations, and hire someone to help me with that so that I can just talk to people all day and write and, you know, do the things that really make me thrive. So you don't have to have it all figured out. You can do it, you know, in steps. Thank you so much for being with me. I feel like I could spend the whole rest of the night talking to you, but it's almost 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So tell us where people can find you, your podcast, your business, your LinkedIn, all of that stuff. Go for it.
All the things. Oh, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. It's at Agent Services Plus. My website is also agentservicesplus.com. I do have a podcast for entrepreneurs. We have real conversations just like this. And it is called Real Chat with Kat. And so I would really love for you guys to like and subscribe, share that one. I'm really trying to blow that up because that is new. But yeah, reach out to me. I check my DMs, my messages. If anybody ever has questions or needs anything, I always offer a free 30-minute consultation just to kind of give you an overview. Sometimes it's nice to just have somebody else hear what you're saying and tell you whether or not you're crazy so that you can get over with it and move on to the next thing, right? So yeah, feel free, reach out to me in any direction.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, Executive Leadership Coach. You can find me here on LinkedIn, here on Facebook, here on YouTube. And I also have a podcast. I Could Talk to You All Day is the podcast. I could talk to people all day, but John Spears and I, he is also an executive coach. We have a podcast together called I Could Talk to You All Day. We're on all the platforms. And reach out to either one of us in the DMs if you have questions about what we do, what you do, if you need somebody to spitball off of, we're here for it. And Kat, thank you so much. I've had so much fun with you tonight, and I can't wait till our next conversation.
Yes.